Thank you for tuning into Slice of Anecdote, a podcast where we explore people's heartfelt stories and life experiences. I am your host. My name is Harry. Today's guest, we have Simon. Simon is from Germany. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm amazing. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm excited for the questions that we answer today.
Good. I'm excited too. I think before we dive in, we kind of want to chat about how we met, right? And we both attended this global communication conference together, and we just so happened to live in a similar time zone and wanted to practice as students because of this conference. It was through that practicing of communications and this relationship kind of sprouted. And yeah, and then you kind of shared some stories with me, which was really intriguing. So I thought it would be really interesting to share. Do you want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, I found it amazing that from a global attendance and us, like during the workshop, we didn't have anything to do with each other, right? So it was just
No.
afterwards on the Discord server that we like were looking for people to practice together, and it worked out between us. And this is just so amazing to get together with people you have never known and you have no idea about them, and you can just hop online and talk. I think that's amazing. And obviously we practice, but I also think we shared some private stories, so there's some kind of friendship there as well, so which I find very, very, very amazing and intriguing, that from just a random class with over 500 attendees, we get to have a one-on-one conversation, one-on-one friendship. That's really amazing to me.
Yeah. And I think as we got into the class, and I think one of the stories you kind of shared is something that is this topic of this podcast today, is basically young love and something that I have never really experienced in my life. And it's a slice of life that I never really got to experience, but you experienced it. So I would love for you to take us on a journey on what that's like. So in a nutshell, you went from dating your high school sweetheart to marriage and then into divorce at a young age. Take me back the time where you had your first crush. What was that like? And how many relationships did you have before your main girl?
The first crush is kind of like a funny story because I didn't have any crushes. I don't know what it was about me, but I never had any I had contact with girls, but I never had any urge to be closer to them or to interact with them in any romantic way. So the kindergarten or elementary school romances that some people have, I never had them. And people around me, they had girlfriends when they were 8 or 9 or 10 or something. And I was I was like, this is ridiculous. Just leave me
Those
be.
are so cute.
Yeah, but I never felt that way. I never felt like I wanted to have anything like this. Sometimes you
Mm.
look at other couples and you're like, oh my God, I wish I was in love, or I wish I had a partner, or I wish I would share my life with someone. I mean, some people had this in elementary school, but I never felt like it. I never felt jealous or the need
Yeah.
to pursue any like this. And
Mhm.
then when I got to, probably you call it high school in Germany, and I was in 7th grade, a girl came up to me and she was like, yeah, do you want to be in a relationship? But I wasn't in love. I was still not at the point yet where I have ever had a crush, where I have ever wanted to be with a woman. So I was like, I have to think about it.
Okay.
And it's looking back at it, it's like a ridiculous, weird answer to give, I guess. Um,
I'm glad that you're aware.
and I mean, I have had my share of weird answers as well, but this is probably just either you are in love or you're not. And I should have probably just said no. But if I said no back then, I don't know whether I would have ever felt love, I guess, because you have to start somewhere. And so I went back and I thought about it for 2 days. So
Right.
she
So what
marinated
was
in
this
her
thinking process?
uncertainty for 2 days until I got back to her.
Uh, uh-huh.
And yeah, then I was like, okay, I want to try this. I want to try this thing they call relationship and whatever love, maybe, I don't know. So I Googled like a poem and I was like, okay, I kind of want to tell her in a beautiful way, like what I thought was romantic or what I thought was beautiful, that I want to be in a relationship with her. And so 2 days later, I got back to her and like we met up in school and I read this poem to her and I was super nervous and I was like, and in the end, she was like, so what does that mean now? Like for her, it wasn't obvious, which I found super interesting because I went through the effort to gather a poem and to present it to her to show my affection, even though it might not have been like true love back then, and she didn't understand it. So a simple yes would have been sufficient, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, after this kind of rocky start, like I said, I still wasn't in love or like I didn't crush on her or something. But obviously then we spent time together. We had like a first kiss. We um, met at her place. We got to my place. We were cooking together. I got to know her family. And the love kind of grew over time, or like within the next 1 or 2 months. I fell in love and I was in love. And then, yeah, after 3 months, it was like the first kind of crushing experience for me, but there were many more to come, where she left me for someone else.
Oh,
And I think we can do another segment about the most ridiculous ways of getting broken up with. But this
sure.
this basically is like, I don't know whether my ex-wife or she takes the cake. Like it's still kind of, they're still battling for it. Because basically what happened
Mm-hmm.
was I was in the school cafeteria and I was getting my food and we had a mutual friend,
Okay.
and the brother of the mutual friend came up to me and he was like, you know, she's breaking up with you. And I was like, what?
Oh, what?
I was like, what? Who are you to tell me? Like, are you like,
And you had no idea.
no, I had no idea. And I was like,
Oh my
what the
God.
fuck is going on? And then basically after he told me, I was like, he must be like, this must be some bad joke or he must be lying. So I raced through the school and trying to find her. And then I just saw her with the other guy and I was like, fuck. It is actually like happening. And it was not like a poor taste joke. And yeah,
Oh.
like, this was the first of many interesting experiences to come. But this is how my love life started, basically.
So you never actually developed a crush or feeling towards this girl. So
No,
on the other hand,
just
she
only when
probably
we,
had this feeling.
yeah, but when we dated, I did.
I'm just saying that people have like initial crushes first before they action to be like, hey, do you want to go on a date? Or like, do you want to be my boyfriend and girlfriend? Like she probably had those type of feelings. So then that's why she asked you to be in a relationship or dating, right? But you never actually had those feelings towards her, but like it slowly developed as you guys started dating within those 2 or 3 months,
Yeah, exactly.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what was she doing with that person when you first saw her? When you got the news?
I mean, it wasn't anything nasty. I mean, we were still in school, right, or on school grounds. So,
Okay.
but they were just like together, and like it was, when you see people and you can just see that they have like a connection or that they are spending more time together, they have feelings for each other. It was just this kind of situation.
Okay.
Them just being close and like, I don't know, being all lovey-dovey lovebirds.
Interesting. Interesting. What about the wife your upcoming wife? Was it the similar situation where you didn't have a crush on her before you guys dated and then slowly developed feelings, or how did it
No,
work?
no, basically, this never happened again. So like, this was the first experience I had, and after that, it was either I met someone and I had a crush immediately, or I never had feelings for them. So like, up until this day, if I don't have feelings for someone in like the first couple of meetings and times, then I am very certain that I will never have feelings with them. It has never happened
Okay.
again. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm no saint either. So when I met my ex-wife back then, I was 15, and it was 2 years after, two and a little bit after my first girlfriend broke up with me. And basically what it was is that between she broke up with me the first time and I met my ex-wife, I had like a couple of relationships. They mostly lasted like 2 to 3 months. They never lasted any longer. And there was a time where I was single again, and the rumor was that my first girlfriend, she left me for someone else. This was going on for like 3 months or something. And then she just kept the crush on me, basically. Like, she changed schools and we didn't have any contact anymore, but the rumor was that she was still kind of have feelings for me, I guess.
Oh,
And
you were living in her head rent free,
yeah,
is what you're
basically,
saying.
basically. I mean, that's the rumor. But so after 2 years, when I was single and I was like, I mean, she was my first love, and let's just try it again. So I got back together with her. I asked her out.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, what harm is it to try it out? But it was awkward as shit. Like, it was really, really
Mhm.
bad. And I tried it because I thought, yeah, I mean, we had feelings for each other. I mean, we were in a relationship. And if she really feels that way, maybe I can figure out whether I still feel that way.
Mm. Mm.
But it didn't work out. It was very awkward. And it was the first time that I had to break up with someone. And it's like, I'm so bad at breakups. Like, I'm,
What did you do? Over text?
no, 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 no. I did it in person, but
Okay,
like,
okay.
I didn't want to hurt her and I didn't want to, like, because, yeah, I'm not there for pain or like to make people suffer. It's just like, it just doesn't work out, right? We
Mhm.
kind of need to move on. But I was like, yeah, I don't want to hurt her. I kind of want to do it gently, but I didn't know how to do it. And so it was like a very awkward moment where we met and we spent some time, and I couldn't get myself to say it. And I was trying to like have a decent conversation and stuff. And then basically just in the end, we were standing at the train station. I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like it's over, I guess. Like I don't have any feelings for you anymore. And so it was like super terrible, and I feel bad for it, but I also don't know how to do it better. Like, it's just like a very bad thing, and I'm not the person to rip off the Band-Aid. And what makes it kind of maybe worse in some other people's eyes is that I broke up with her for my ex-wife. So I met my ex-wife while I was still in the relationship with this other person.
Oh,
And
he's a womanizer.
no, not at all, not at all. But like, it was just, I didn't have anything with my ex-wife. Like, it wasn't like I had two girlfriends at the same time, but it was just like, I got
Mm.
to know her and I was just like, okay, I'm in a relationship right now where I'm not happy, where I don't have any feelings for her. And I get to know this girl who makes me feel something. So I was like,
Right.
okay, I kind of need to break up with her for someone else. And I don't know, some people I talk to about it, they frown upon kind of meeting someone else while you are in a relationship. And I think sometimes it just can't be helped. I just think it's important how you deal with it.
That's really interesting because in some aspects, when you are in a relationship, and if there is an option B, I think, then option A is not necessarily an option. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
it depends. Like, we will get back to it when we come to my divorce, I believe. But I think it is okay to be in a relationship where you are already not happy, and then you meet someone to then just be like, okay, this is like a sign for me to just call it quits and try to move on. Back
You
to
were
it.
still young.
Yeah,
You were still young. So, like,
yeah.
I think
I was 15.
it's
Yeah,
good to just keep trying things out and move on. Okay, so you met your wife, or let's just
yeah,
say, let's call her girlfriend at this timeline. So you met your new girlfriend,
yeah.
and How did that go? The
So
life, the dating, all of that.
yeah, so basically, first thing I always want to highlight because I find it very like interesting is how I met her. And so I was
Okay.
kind of in like a Bible study group because we had to do it in like this group of age. And there was like a girl and I found her attractive, so I wanted to get to know her and I got to know her and I spent time with her and I got to her place, but yeah, we never clicked. Like it was not really like I don't know. I don't know how she felt because we never talked about it, but I didn't get the feeling that I that this could work out. And so one day I was at her place and she was calling with a friend of hers and I was just like, I mean, you don't need to stop the phone call. So I don't know, we talked to her friend and then afterwards I was just like getting the number of the friend of the girl I was initially hitting on. And then I texted with her and then I was like, yeah, I mean, if you have any friends over and you want to have a phone call, then we can call. And so she called me one
What?
time with her friend
Okay.
and then I was like, ah, this was fun. How about you come over on the weekend? And then those two girls, they came over to my place. Yeah, they got in big trouble for it because they never told anyone that they were going to, like, they didn't
A
tell their,
boy's house?
yeah, they didn't tell their parents. And yeah, but they were here and
Scandalous.
basically the third friend then, she was my future wife and she was I'm into this edgy stuff, like she was 15. She was like dark hair and then like yellow, like blonde highlights, and like she had shoelaces as like a wristband, and she had like she was wearing denim and shit, and I was like, this was my kind of corny, my kind of like edgy that I was into back then, and
Okay.
she was very.
What was your look? Like, what is young Simon was that look? Like, what were you wearing? What was the fashion?
I'm not a fashionable guy, to be honest.
That's
Uh,
fine, but I want to know like what you're wearing.
I mean, to be honest, with 15, 16, I might be into my joggings phase where I was just like, wearing joggings and hoodies, not really giving a fuck about anything.
Okay, so like
Um,
sweats and stuff.
yeah, like,
Okay.
yeah, like I said, I was just wearing whatever was on top of my closet and never went shopping. So I don't know.
Typical straight dude.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. So, yeah, and she was like this kind of edgy. She was shy and silent and like, I don't know. It was, but just her looks, I guess. They were like, oh my God, I'm in love. And
You fell in love with her black hair, blonde streaks,
yeah,
and shoelaces on her wrists,
yeah,
being and wearing denim.
yeah,
Okay.
and wearing denim and like what I like. I mean, still to this day, like chokers, you know them.
Oh,
I kind of like that shit. I don't know,
kinky.
a little bit. And that's like another point where it's like, I saw her for the first time and I was like, I knew I had a crush. So, and this is how it works. Either I see someone and I'm like, oh my God, I have a crush, or like never anything is gonna happen ever. It was kind of awkward because we were three people there, so it wasn't like I still wanted to make it a good experience for everyone. So I wasn't just hitting on her or anything, but I was just like trying to have like a nice afternoon. But then we kept texting, and she was kind of like a how do you call it in English? Like a wallflower, like an outsider, probably just like me.
Okay.
And I was her first boyfriend, so like I was kind of hitting on her. We were meeting over 1 month or something. We had like 3 or 4 meetings, but she never really like thought of it as dating, or she didn't think that I would be interested in her or anything like this. At least that's what she told me. And so it was like a little bit awkward. And to throw another curveball, during this dating process, I got to know her friend circle and stuff. And so there was another girl where I was briefly confused about whether I would rather date her the than my actual wife then. But it was like a weekend where I was confused, and then I was like, no, I need to make a decision, and I decided for her. And I was like, But this was kind of like the thing where I was like, okay, now that I overcame this confusion and now that I decided, okay, I want to pursue her, I was like, okay, the next time we met each other, I was like, I need to tell her that I'm in love. Like, I need to make it like official. I need to make it like thing. And then it was so awkward because I had like a beanbag, like a sitting back thingy, and
Okay.
it was like in leopard. It had like leopard. What is it called?
Leopard print.
Yeah, leopard print. Yeah, and so we were lying there, and we were. Kind of was making out with her, but it was very awkward, and like I was not good at it. I was her first boyfriend, so probably I was the first one she did it with. So it was like it was very very awkward. But we did it for like half an hour or something, and then we got up, and I was like, I didn't say I'm in love with you. I said I love you, which is already like maybe a little bit too much, but I said it, and
Oh, that's so cute.
she
Okay.
just didn't say anything.
Oh no.
She didn't say nothing. And I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, what is this? But then, yeah,
Okay.
let's go outside, let's have a walk. And since she said yes, I figured that we made out, we are going on a walk after I said I love you, so it can't be a no, I guess. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting start to the relationship.
Okay, so how did this relationship kind of like evolve over time? Like, is there any highlights that you can think of? Any happy moments that you particularly cherish?
I mean, there are many, I guess. I mean, it was my first.
Give me like just a few. Just give me a few.
It was like my first long-term relationship. So
Hmm.
not in any chronological order, but she introduced me to Disneyland, which is nice. Like
Okay.
her parents were crazy about it, and so I don't know. The first time I went was when I was like 16. So we still had 1 or 2 years where I was not allowed to go by my parents because they were like, "Nah, you need to go on vacation with us. You cannot go with someone else." And in the year we got married, we went to Disneyland like 4 or 5 times. It was very fun.
Wow. Wait, which Disneyland?
Paris.
Okay. So you didn't go to any other Disneylands
No,
other than Paris?
no, only Paris.
Okay.
Yeah. Just generally, I think we, like, especially up until the wedding or like up until the marriage, we had amazing communication. We were able to talk about almost anything. We were open about how we felt, what we needed. I think it taught me a lot already about like how I want to have a relationship or like how I want to shape it. And yeah, like I mean, they're just like the little things. Like one time I went like on a vacation for I don't know whether it was like 3 weeks or something or 2 weeks. So she was very artsy. She was very crafty. So she made like a comic basically. She loved to draw and stuff. So she made me a comic to read through. So like to not miss her, and that was very sweet.
Oh,
She
that's so cute. Okay.
um when she turned
What
eight,
was it about?
I think it was just generally about our life, like just about like
Okay.
us.
Very cute.
When she turned 18, I made her like, because she loved to paint, I made her a canvas because I was like an event technician by then already. And we had also like a decoration building department. And so I asked the guy, hey, I want to make a canvas. Like, can you help me how to do it and stuff? So he taught me how to make a canvas, and it was like a huge canvas. It was like 250 to 180 or something. Like it was ridiculously huge. It didn't fit into any car, so we had to get like a trailer to get it to her place.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, that was like a very nice memory. And then she painted it,
Did
and
she paint on it?
yeah,
Okay.
she painted on it. Like later on, the school took it up, and the school displayed it. Um,
Wow. Okay. What was the painting?
I only know the colors. Like it was like dark blue and red and black. I think it was. I don't know whether it was a person. I don't remember too much anymore. But just the fact that, like, I remember that it looked pretty awesome, and just the fact that I did something personal and that she received it so well and that she loved it. It was a very nice memory.
Okay. I love that you just didn't remember what the painting was.
Yeah, I mean,
I just remember the colors.
yeah, it's just I don't know. I mean, many things have happened since
Okay.
then, I believe.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So
Uh,
how did you decide to move on to the next step? of, all right, this is the time we're gonna get married?
I think if you're in a relationship for so long, and I mean,
Mhm.
by 18, I was already in a relationship for 3 years, right? So,
Yeah.
um, if you're in a relationship for so long, you kind of think about these things like, what's the future going to look like? Are we going to have family? What do we want to do? Like, where do we want to live? And all the stuff. So I think it's kind of learned behavior. So if people are not in a relationship or not in a long-term relationship when they're young, I don't think that they are immediately thinking about family or about wedding or anything. On the other hand, I think I'm quite a like conservative guy. Like I just love. I mean, I love traditions, maybe a little bit over exaggerated, but I love the sentiment of marriage, and
Okay.
I do believe it makes a lot of sense, especially in this kind of society where everything is kind of a little bit more loose, and to kind of have someone and you make an official commitment. I like the sentiment, and I don't know why she liked it at first, but it was definitely a talking point that we had. We were still co-footing, and it was important to us that we both got the chance to propose and got the chance to be proposed to. So she did her proposal like 1.5 years earlier than I did, because apparently she was a little bit faster than I was. But I was like, I just started my apprenticeship. I don't feel very secure. I don't really feel like I can provide for a family. Um, and so I was like, yeah, I would definitely love to
Mm.
marry you, but I need some more time to figure my shit out before I can give you this commitment and really be the husband I imagine myself to be.
Okay. What was her proposal like? What set me the scene? What was it like? Do you remember?
Yeah, she was very artsy and craftsy and very, very this
Mhm.
creative type. And I don't know whether it was just a phase mom, but it was like a medieval kind of phase. So we went to medieval markets. She was trying, like, she was wearing like linen gowns and stuff at this kind of time. So we went to a castle and we did like a day trip to a
You went to a what, sorry?
castle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we went to this castle and we had a very nice time. Like it's kind of like a day trip for us. So we drive there, we have like some picnic stuff with us. We look at the castle, we look at the surroundings, the nature. They always have like a garden there with trees and different plants. It was quite romantic, and she was wearing this linen dress, quite long,
Mhm.
and she was like wearing old clunky leather shoes and stuff. So it was like the whole aesthetic of like medievalish ages.
She's
And
on theme. She's on theme.
she's on theme. I was not so much. I have no idea what I was wearing, but I
Oh,
I was
no.
I was usually not so much into like those themes. Um, but I mean, I liked that she was so happy about it, and she was like so enthusiastic about her
Mhm.
her
Did you know that
perception
it
of
was
the world.
coming? Like this whole thing? This whole engagement that she was gonna do? Did you know that it was coming up? Or you had no
May
idea?
I wouldn't say I had no idea, because I mean, obviously we were talking a lot about it. Like generally, we were talking about it. Um, I didn't know that it was coming at this point, and I didn't know. Maybe I also was a little bit afraid of it, so I kind of like pushed it away for myself. I was like, nah, this is too early. I don't want it to happen now. I don't think I suspected too much of it. Maybe it was a little bit obvious, but not to
Okay.
me, I
So
guess.
you guys have talked about it, but you
Yeah, yeah,
just
definitely.
weren't aware if it's gonna happen at this moment
Yeah,
when you guys went to the castle. Okay.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, then was just like in the afternoon after we went to all the different places that we could look at. We were in the garden in front of the tree, and there were like white blossoms on the tree. And yeah, basically we were standing there, and we were holding hands, like, in front of each other. And then she went down and she wanted to propose, and she had a ring, and like I was overwhelmed as fuck, because I was like, I mean, I don't know. I earn like $400 a month. I don't feel like a man right now. I don't feel like I can do this. And
Uh, okay.
so it was kind of like an awkward conversation, because I said yes, but and
No.
and like we learned in our communication course by now, yes and is a way better way to talk about
Yeah.
different opportunities. And it basically was
It's okay.
just
You were 18 back then. You were 18.
yeah. But basically it was just that I said, yes, I know that I want to marry you, and yes, I know that I love you, and
Mm-hmm.
I need to figure out some shit before, and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
ready yet. That's also why we said, okay, everybody gets the chance to propose, because basically then I had the chance to take my time and then propose myself, and then we would move on to getting
Okay.
married.
Was there like pictures taken at that moment? Were the friends with you guys, or is
No, it
it
was
just you
just
two?
us. Yeah.
Okay. So fast forward to a year and a half. What were you doing within this a year and a half before you proposed to her? You were just working on your career and focusing on that, or?
Yeah, so basically when we turned 19, or like when I turned 19 and she just finished school, we moved out and we moved together. And we moved to a different city because I live in Munich, and Munich is so expensive that you cannot really afford it, especially not if you're doing like an apprenticeship or if you study. And sadly, we are not like old money rich. So we kind of needed to get by on our own. Like obviously we got support by our parents, but it was not really enough to afford a place in Munich. And
Right.
so we moved to a different city, and it was nice. And it was really great it was just us two, and we had a 2-bedroom apartment, like 2-room apartment. And we were living our lives as we wanted. We went out when we wanted. We did groceries. We did like generally like all the household shenanigans together. And we got a good connection with each other and create life together,
Mm.
shape our own lives without any outside influences. And I finished my apprenticeship. So an apprenticeship in Germany, it takes like 3 years. And like I said, I earned like 400 to, in the end, like $500 net in the first 3 years. I just felt, okay, this is not a way to start a family. And after I finished my apprenticeship, I decided to be self-employed. So to be basically a solopreneur and do freelance work. And basically with that step, I felt secure in us having lived a relationship for 6 years, me being at a spot right now where I had a career. I was not just like, working for below minimum wage. And yeah, basically this was for me the reason, okay, we have proven to ourselves that we went through so much shit. Like we even were broken up with for 6 hours because we were at
Oh no.
a crossroads where I decided, okay, if you do not want to do this with me, then I kind of need to figure it out by myself. But then she came back and we kind of figured it out. And so like we went through a lot, and I felt like, okay, if from 15 to 21, so many things are happening, right? And if you go through this, then you might be able to go the distance. And as well as me being in a good spot career-wise, I felt like, okay, this is the moment where I can propose.
I think it's very interesting around that age between after getting out of high school and everybody's kind of thinking about uni, right? Because everyone could be thinking about, oh, it could be in a different city or a country for university. And sometimes I think that's a lot of the reasons why a lot of the high school relationships don't last. Because everybody has different goals and different like life aspirations. And for you guys to actually maintain that type of relationship all the way to 21 is quite unique in the way that you guys have aligned yourselves to make that commitment to make it work. So I think that was really interesting to hear that. So now that you feel secure and with your job and stuff, now you decide to plan your engagement. Like what was going through your head? What was the setup? But tell me the whole shebang.
I'm usually late when it comes to planning, and I'm usually not that
Oh
like
no.
I'm not that like I like to be spontaneous. I like to be flexible. I don't like to commit myself in because obviously marriage is a huge commitment and I'm ready to do this, but I don't want to put dates on things, I just want to be able to do things when I feel like I'm ready for it. And so basically, one thing I did is that I picked a ring that I think she really liked, and I got it at a fair, and it was like a very artsy ring and nature. It was symbolizing nature and everything. It was a golden ring. I don't know how much gold it was in there, but I mean, I still didn't earn too much money, but I was like, okay, let's figure something out. I bought the ring. I planned like an afternoon date-ish where we got food, where we went on a walk, and it got pretty dark in the evening, and you could see like there's like a huge park in the city that I lived in, so you could see the sky and the stars because there was not too much light pollution in the air, and there were many different ponds in the park, and over most of the ponds there was like a bridge. And so it
Okay.
was like a wooden bridge, and we went over it, and then we just stopped on the top of the arch and holding like the railing and like hugging her with one hand and just like looking at the stars and talking and having a great time. And like, I didn't know how hard it was to propose, even though I had the
Okay.
luxury of knowing that she already proposed to me 1.5 years before.
Uh,
Like, I was standing there
yeah.
and I was
You're still
shaking.
nervous.
Yeah, I was
Oh
shaking,
my
and
gosh.
I was like, I couldn't get myself to do it. Like, it's basically like a done deal, but I couldn't like, I was like still so anxious about it and what might happen and what does it mean. And I had this ring in my pocket the whole time, and sometimes I was playing with it in my pocket, and I was like, fuck, I need to do it. I want to do it, but it feels so hard
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to be so vulnerable. What it meant for me was basically putting my entire life into her hands, being like, this is me. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to go through all the troubles, go through all the happiness with you. And I need you to agree to this commitment. I need you to make this happen. So we need to do it together. And this kind of vulnerability was just so hard for me to show. That was really something. And then like it took ages, and I think she knew it. Like she knew because I was so anxious, and I'm usually not an anxious person, and because I was nervous and like not very
She saw right through
secure.
you.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I think so. And so I went down on one knee and I gave her the ring, and she said yes, and it was like an amazing evening. It was an amazing evening. Yeah.
That's so uniquely interesting for everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're a girl or a guy. I think she was probably very nervous at that time as well, and she was doing the proposal. And it is a universal anxious moment for everybody, and everyone's like very nervous. And I think that's very beautiful experience for people to have, right, through that engagement. I haven't had that yet, but we'll
Man,
see.
I will have it twice.
But I think, yeah, you might have it twice. Hopefully that your last. I think even though she already has said yes to you a year and a half ago, you already had that luxury and you're still nervous. Yeah, I think it's very human nature of us to, have these feelings and want to be validated again and again, right? Even though she has said yes a year and a half ago. How did the marriage work in terms of leading up to making it fully official?
Okay, so you mean the time between the proposal and the marriage?
Yeah.
It was pretty fast because we said, okay, I finished my job in June and we got married in September. So it was like 3 months, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
so we didn't have much preparation, but we also didn't want to have much preparation. So like the first thing we said, okay, let's marry on like, because she was like a Potterhead, she was like, okay, let's marry on like September 34th, like 9 3/4. So like that would be October something, right? Does it make sense to you?
Okay. My head was spinning.
That doesn't make sense to you.
September 34th. No, no, no. I understand the reference. I was like, wait, which date would that be?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to go into October, right? But that was my initial idea, to be like, hey, let's be funny, let's be corny, and let's choose September 34th. But none of her friends had time because uni was already starting again, and it was just inconvenient. So we settled on the 27th of September. Basically, I finished my job apprenticeship and I was freelancing, but I was still not rich by any means. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, let's have like a low budget wedding. My uncles have like basically a venue where they rent out the the restaurant to restaurant owners, and we have 2 acres of lawn in the backyard. So I was like, okay, let's
Oh.
just go there. It doesn't cost anything. We celebrate in the garage. So we put like fabric in the garage ceiling, so it doesn't look like a garage ceiling, but we had some fabric there.
Hmm.
Like she was like into the Harry Potter theme, so she crafted some like those flying candles, from the Great Hall. And
Yes.
so we put them on like nylon strings and we put them into the roof. So it was like the flying
Okay.
candles. And then we had like 2 pavilions in front of the garage, so there was a little bit more space if it rained. And we got some, like in Germany, it's quite popular to have like a roasted pork, like an entire pork that is on like a thing that turns around the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's quite traditional. And then I just said everyone to bring their own food, like not to bring their own food,
Okay.
but everybody was supposed to bring food because I was like, first of all, I don't have to worry whether everybody gets something to eat because with dietary, like some people,
Dietary requirements.
yeah, some people don't eat everything or they have like a specific taste. And I was like, I
Yeah.
cannot bother with that. Like, I do not want to be so mindful of like 80 people. Just everybody bring something and then everybody will have something, right?
Yeah.
Um,
That's very smart. A potluck is very smart for a wedding.
yeah. So everybody brought some food, and yeah. So organization. I think my wife did most of the organization. I did like not too much. I guess I took care of the official office because we didn't want to get married in like an office, right? And 1 or 2 villages further from my home village, they have like this beautiful house. It's like a house in the forest, and there's lots of woods around, and it's like a huge garden, and it's like generally like a very beautiful scenery. And they offer that you can get married in this kind of house, and
Hmm.
so we chose this. This is what I took care of, but she took care of most of the decorations and the crafty things. And yeah, basically within 3 months we were married.
Sounds like a beautiful low budget ceremony on theme of like what she liked, and she was very crafty about it. So,
Yeah, I think it was very nice.
and there was a potluck. Sounds like there's a lot of food.
Yeah, it
I'm
was. It was
excited
a
with
lot
the
of food, and there was so much interesting food as well. Like everybody like brought something, either like a family recipe or like something that they were just
Mhm.
into. So it was like it was great to see so many people come together and so many people share so many things. Yeah, it was really amazing.
I have to ask, what was the cake? What was the cake like?
So we didn't have like a huge cake like you usually have at weddings, but also we had a couple of cakes, like a couple of small ones. What was like the official wedding cake is like an amazing story because the official wedding cake was basically baked by my mother-in-law, and it was like a flat cake. So it was like on a tray that it was like a flat cake, not like a huge one. And one day we were at my parents-in-law's place, and we were just doing stuff, and they were preparing already. We just walked around and we gathered in the kitchen and we had a conversation. So, and in the kitchen there was like also a little bit of a desk with a computer and some stuff, and they had an office chair in front of it. And I just sat down on the office chair, and I was like, this office chair, like it feels different than usual. It feels a little bit more soft. I don't know, like, but I didn't think of it. Like I was like, maybe it's another cushion. I don't know. And so,
Oh no.
like, I don't know, half a minute later or something, I shot up and I was like, no, I just realized I had sat on this fucking tray of cake for like a
Oh
minute or so
no.
because she put it there to cool off, or I don't know. And like, luckily the decoration wasn't done. It was just the cake itself. But I was like, oh my fucking God. So I think this is like,
Oh.
I don't know how many husbands can say that they have sat on their wedding cake, but I did.
But why would she put it on the chair? Out of all
I
things.
don't know. I don't know.
That is so
But
okay.
things happen, you know.
Okay.
But I
But
think
did you guys still eat the cake?
Yeah, we did. Like we did. We salvaged it. We
Okay.
salvaged it. And
Okay.
I also think like these are the kind of things that you want in a marriage, like ridiculous stories that you can talk about like 10 years later.
And laugh about it
Yeah, and laugh
later.
about it
Yeah,
because like
definitely.
I mean, obviously I was so ashamed and I was so like ah, but I mean in the end what can you do? Just laugh. Just laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember what kind of cake it was?
No, I don't know.
I
These
love
are not
cake.
the kind
That's
of
why I'm just
these are not the
asking.
kind of details that I keep in my mind, I guess.
Unfortunate, unfortunate. So you guys had a happy, happy little marriage. And
Wedding at least, yeah.
when did it start going downhill?
It's hard to say. Like when you asked me 5 years ago when I was still married, I would say not at all. Like never. Because I was very surprised by the downfall of the marriage and like me being dumped basically. When you ask me now, I would say probably like 3 months into our wedding, two things basically happened in that time, which is Corona came, like COVID came,
Okay.
and we moved back to my parents because that was like, I'm not a big fan of like what ifs. So I don't want to think about whether it would have been better to stay in the different city and like in the apartment. We didn't do it. We went back to save our money and stuff. And I was like still the only breadwinner. So I was like, okay, I basically lost my job because as an event technician in COVID times,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I didn't have any income. So we moved back to my parents and like, I mean, my parents have a house. So we had enough separation, but I feel like my ex-wife didn't get along too well with my mom. It put a lot of stress on her, but even if I offered to find solutions to find another place to stay, it didn't really help, as well as her not really like finding ways to figure out what she wants to do with her life, I guess. A huge thing then that obviously also ended our relationship then was that she started seeing or like started meeting with someone I knew very well. And yeah, I mean, if we lived somewhere else, this probably wouldn't have happened, at least at this time. But maybe it would have had happened later. You know, I think what happened was that she was not comfortable in the situations that we were at, and even though we had a solution planned, like we wanted to move to Berlin and we wanted to study there, and we basically were working towards a solution, but the solution was like 6-7 months still away. You know, and
Right. It
I
wasn't soon enough.
yeah, I think within those 7 months, like she just decided that she was not willing to bear it anymore. And she, like I said, met with this person a lot. And apparently he gave her the feeling what she needed. And
Hmm.
the communication stopped. Probably she talked more to him than to me. And that's what I mean. Like, to me, it wasn't obvious because I wasn't aware of the issues, you know? Like, I wasn't aware of the problems she had. So I also didn't have a chance to do anything about it. And so that's what I mean. If you asked me back then, I had no idea, and it was like it was a total surprise, and it just pulled the rug out under my feet. I was totally baffled and surprised. But if you ask me now, I can see like communication got worse, and the reasons why it got worse are not really in my power to say because I'm not her, and she never told me. But yeah,
Yeah. What was your perspective? What was your perspective?
on what?
Um, on the communication part.
I mean, there were things that surprised me. Like, for example, she told me what she wanted to study in Berlin, which was basically movie and like film and theater stuff. Like she's always been a theater
Okay.
kid, but I never knew or like I never thought that she would study anything with movies. So as a curious husband, I asked her like how it came to that decision because I never heard of it before. You know, I never heard of it
Mm.
of her wanting to do anything like this. And later, like basically when we had the last conversation we had, she told me that she felt like she had to justify her decisions. She had to justify her decision to take this studies. And I was just like, no, I'm your husband. I'm interested in your life. And like, what you want. And like, I can also not necessarily take it too seriously just from the explanation I just gave you, because for me, it was about curiosity, and it was about sharing our lives, and it was about not making every decision together, but, like just understanding each other. And apparently for her, it was justifying herself, which I do not really understand. And I never intentionally did anything to give her the impression that she was not allowed to make her own choices. So that's why I cannot really take this argument very seriously. But that's at least one thing she pretended was a reason.
It sounds like there's a lot of different layers that led up to the divorce. Like, COVID happened, and then the environment of the tension between you and your her and your family. And then there are certain things that kind of happened in the communication between you two, and then there's another person that kind of involved. And COVID was a test of time for everybody, I think, not
Yeah,
just...
but I don't see that. Like, I mean, sure, the evidence is clear that like many couples didn't survive COVID, but like, for example, my sister found her husband during COVID. Like the weekend before the first lockdown, she met her husband, and basically she just moved in with him. Like so like I doubt that COVID is a reason why relationships break, but that's just like my personal conviction.
Yeah.
And like I said, all the things that we talked about, like, yeah, the tension between my mother and her, but she was not willing to communicate it clearly, and she was not willing to work on solutions, right? Either you have to say, yeah, this sucks, but I am fine with it and I can wait it out, or it sucks so much that we need to change something about it. It's a part of communication. It's a part of taking responsibility for your own feelings, for your own desires, for your own wishes. And yeah, I just blame it on maturity rather than outside factors.
What do you think the problem was for you as an individual, not thinking about your ex-wife at the time, reflecting on what are the things that you could have done better, or what were the issues that... I guess I'm trying to highlight, like,
What I
tell
did
me
wrong.
about what you did instead of what she did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, I thought about it a lot, and I think one thing is that I needed to be more empathetic when she had some emotional topics, or when there were just some things that I've never had experienced, right? Sometimes I might have been very rudely and very direct, which I don't necessarily see as like a weakness, or like as like I think it should be fine, and kindness can hurt sometimes, but I think I could have been more empathetic to her. I could have maybe figured out a way how she could talk more openly, or like maybe apparently she didn't feel safe to voice her feelings in my presence, right? But like, there's one thing. Okay, how could I achieve that she feels more safe in my presence, and she can voice that she doesn't like to live with my mom, and that she can voice that she doesn't want to justify herself, because when she does that, then we can actually have a conversation about it. Then we can actually say, hey, I never wanted you to justify. I was just curious about your life. I was just curious as your husband I was excited for you to spend your life in a way that you want to, and I'm happy that you found something that you're interested in, but I've never heard of it, so I would love to have some more information about it. So we never...
But you didn't deliver it that way.
I think I did, but apparently
Okay.
she didn't receive it that way,
Okay.
And like, on the other hand, I think, when communication is like an amazing thing, and it's like important to learn all the good things, but if someone wants to misunderstand you, they will misunderstand you. To me personally, just looking at this argument of like, I don't want to justify my actions or like my decisions in front of you, is like a backhanded argument. She wanted to leave me for someone else. She didn't want to admit it to herself. So she fabricated an argument what I did wrong.
Okay.
So like that doesn't mean that I couldn't have done anything better. Like I could have done a million things better, probably. Like
Yeah.
no doubt about
100%.
it.
Yeah.
I just think that what makes it so hard for me to deal with it is that I personally believe that I didn't get any real argument why she left. Because the ultimate argument was she fell in love with someone else and she decided to pursue this other person.
Right.
And
it's already predetermined that
and
there was like nothing else you could have done.
basically, and she didn't say this, like when I asked her, yeah, I mean, obviously you're going to leave me for him. She said no. And they spent every day together, but they weren't a couple for, I don't know, half a year or a year after, like,
Right.
she
Her actions didn't meet up.
yeah, she didn't want it to admit to herself, which is like what I'm talking about, responsibility, like, or like accountability for your actions. But she kind of needed reasons to justify her actions without being honest with herself regarding her feelings towards someone else. And that doesn't mean that I did everything right, and it doesn't mean that the points that she's bringing up are not valid.
Right.
I just feel that I had no option, I had no say in this because I never got to know that this was an issue.
Yeah, because she's already gone. Like there was no way for you to kind of like maintain a relationship because in her mind, subconsciously, it's already kind of done.
Yeah, and like I said, if she would have said then and there, or maybe not to put the focus away from her, but to put the focus on me. If I could have figured it out back then already, what she was like, that she felt like she had to justify herself. If I could have somehow figured it out, even though it takes always two people to do that, then I think we would have had a chance. So if I were more empathetic, if I were more like able to read her or to figure her out, then we could have done better, I think. But on the other hand, I do believe that if the other person doesn't want you to figure her out or doesn't want to communicate clearly, then the options are limited. That's basically what I'm saying. Like there are plenty of things that I could have done, but I don't know whether they would have been realistic expectations of back then.
And now the active listener will realize, wait a minute, at the beginning of the episode, did he not leave a girl for his ex-wife? And now he's bitching that his ex-wife is leaving him for someone else? And they're totally correct. That if you look at it this way, it's definitely a similar situation. For me personally, though, marriage is a totally different deal. When you're in a relationship, it's about love, it's about emotions, it's about how you feel being with each other. But when you marry, when you give each other the promise to spend every day until the end of your life with each other, in the good and the bad times, and then someone comes along to rival this promise, then they rival your integrity, they rival your vows, your decision, your character. And so I believe when you're in a relationship, it can happen that you fall in love with someone else. It can happen that you find someone who's better. And I promise you, you will always find someone who's better. But when you're married, you decided that regardless of what's about to come, regardless of who you will find next, you will stay with this person because you gave the promise, because it's good and it's well, and you give it your all to foster and to stay the strong bond that you promised for each other. And for me personally, this is a huge difference. I can understand anybody who disagrees, who doesn't like the institution of marriage, who think it's old-fashioned, outdated, whatever. But to me personally, marriage is a decision and it should be taken seriously, and you wake up every day deciding for your marriage and not for someone else.
Thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
How was the actual divorce like? Did you have to sign papers? Did you guys have to fight things? Because my experience of a divorce was only from my parents, and it was not fun. But I think because I'm just asking in terms of how short your marriage was, and then I mean it's not gonna be fun in any means necessary, but I think I just want to know in what levels.
Yeah. So the thing about the divorce starts with how the breakup went down, right? So it was the day after her birthday, and her birthday was still within COVID, so there were still restrictions, and we couldn't like have a huge party. It is around Halloween, so we always like to go trick or treating and stuff like this, even as adults, because we just enjoyed it. And it was not possible
Wow. Okay.
because of the restrictions.
Hmm.
And so what I did is I bought like small little presents, packed them individually, gave them to friends, mostly friends of mine because friends of hers weren't available at the time. And we basically made like a trick or treating tour with the car and to different places, and she had to go trick or treating to get her presents and stuff. So I tried to make it like a good birthday, but I do think that maybe the execution was not as perfect as it could have been, but I tried. And then the thing was that, for example, on what I mean with I could have been more empathetic was when we had lunch that day. I don't know for what reason, like whether we had a fight or whether we argued or whether what was stressing her, but she had like a panic attack. And up until that point, I never had a panic attack, and I didn't really know what it was like. And I was probably emotionally on the edge as well because we were arguing on something. And so then was a point where I was just like, "Ah, come on, let's go." And she was like, "Fuck you, I can't. I'm having a panic attack." And so like these were the kind of scenarios I was talking about, right? So that
Mm.
when there were things that I didn't understand, I sometimes had a hard time feeling myself into them and reacting accordingly. Even though it's a two-way street, like if I'm on edge, like obviously, like just generally by then probably you've lost touch with each other and each other's emotions and being like kind to each other. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Mm.
And then we had lunch and everything was fine. And then we went home and we had like dinner with her parents. Her grandfather lived at the same place at the same time. And like this friend of mine who was there as well. And we had dinner and we had like,
She was seeing
huh?
that she was seeing.
Yeah, they were friends and I knew about it. I was happy
Yeah.
for her
Okay.
basically that she had someone to
Go to.
go to and do things with. Yeah, I mean, I do think that friends are important even though you have a partner. You need to also have social contacts.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he was there as well, and we had like a nice time. We were talking about all the good things, and yeah, it was all good. And around midnight, I was tired and I went to bed. And I was like, yeah, my wife is gonna come to bed as well at some point, and then we're gonna cuddle and have like a nice romantic evening night. And she didn't come, and I waited and waited and waited. And in the end, it took her 3 hours to come to bed this evening. And I was like, oh, that's weird. That's not what I would expect. The next morning, it was like, I don't like getting up early, but I got up at 8 and she was already awake. And yeah, basically, I found her in the living room and she was sitting on the floor, kind of staring into nothing. And I was like, you don't look so good. Like, is there anything wrong? And she basically didn't say anything again, just like she said when she loved me. Like, she didn't love me, but I loved her. And I was like, like, do I need to be worried about our relationship? And she said that as long as we were good for each other, I don't have to worry about it. And I don't know about you, but if you have a spouse or if you're married and you talk to her and you ask her whether we have a problem and she says, as long as we're good for each other, that's not the answer that I want to hear, at least. I would have loved to hear like a no or I love you or I don't know. But that's what I got. And I was like, okay, who do you think is better for you? And then she didn't say anything anymore again. And after that, she basically went to her room and called her best friend and talked to her brother. And I went to breakfast with her parents, and they talked about how amazing the wedding was and how amazing the last year was, and they talked about all the nice things, and basically I knew that my relationship was over. And
They knew that?
no, I knew it, but they didn't.
Oh.
So I was sitting there with the knowledge, okay, she basically just broke up with me without saying anything. And now I'm sitting here talking to those people how amazing my wedding was and my relationship and my
Right.
marriage was.
Okay.
And yeah, that was a pretty tough hour that I was sitting there and trying to have breakfast and listening to them without losing it. And one thing that really is hard for me to take is her way to deal with all of this, because she talked to her best friend who didn't have like any relationship until then, and he talked to her brother, who was like 3 years younger than her, and yeah, also just like, you know, he had some relationships, but you ask someone who never had a relationship about marriage advice, and I personally feel like they don't necessarily know what it takes to have a marriage.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Fair enough.
I also believe that, you know, like I said, we didn't have a fight about our marriage. We didn't have a fight about her emotion or like her feelings to someone else. We didn't have a conversation. Like, you know, it was just like a cut and it was over. Yeah, for me personally, that is not how marriage works. You know, like you give each other a promise, you make it official. It's not just a relationship, and that's why I mean I'm old-fashioned and I like the sentiment of a marriage, because personally I believe that once you do that, obviously there's always the chance of divorce, but you would at least fight for it or work through it or like try to salvage something, because it's not just like a 3-month like relationship, it's like a marriage. But yeah, all of this didn't happen. And then like 2 days later I had a conversation with her again, but she always gave me those like I said, those fake arguments about what I did, or like when I supported her, she felt like she was pressured into. It's okay that she feels that way, but she never voiced it to me, you know? Like, it's okay that she had all those things to say after she ended my marriage, but she never told me any of these things during the marriage. And that's what I have an issue with. And that's why I cannot really take those arguments seriously, because I really feel like it's just a cover-up story for her catching feelings for someone else and deciding for herself that she would rather pursue them than me, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
But this basically, to get to your question, this basically is what dragged through the divorce. So basically she broke up with me, and like she didn't take any responsibility during the breakup, she never took any responsibility ever again. So I was the one broken up with, and I had to file for divorce because she didn't care about getting a lawyer. She didn't care about trying to get anything from me, which she maybe was entitled to, maybe not, you know? So that was kind of like okay-ish for me, but it just showed how little responsibility she took, how little accountability she had for her actions, which really baffled me and surprised me, and like it really cost me a lot of nerves to think about, okay, I spent 8 years with this person and now she shows me this side of her which I totally despise, because it is so unfair, it is so untrue, it is so irresponsible. So the marriage was kind of clean, but if you sit there and you just got broken up with and you realize that, okay, it's been a couple of months and nothing has happened, so I guess I need to file for divorce. You sit there and you fill out the documents and it says, I don't know how you call it. Do you say divorcee or something? I don't know. But you have to write your name. you write your name on the line where her name should be standing, and you write her name on the person who gets divorced, you know, like who, like that felt so wrong, and it felt so hurtful, and it was devastating. And I think I filled it out and I was sitting over it for like minutes, and I didn't send it for days because I was like, is this really the truth? Like, is this what this marriage has become? That like I get my heart broken and I need to file for divorce because
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't do it. She doesn't take responsibility for her action to leave me and do the right thing. Yeah, that was really hard for me.
So moving forward from after the divorce and like now in present time, like what do you think are some of like the key lessons that you have learned through your past relationships that you're gonna take to a potential new one?
Find yourself someone who's responsible and who's accountable. I think this is probably the biggest lesson that I had.
And what are you currently doing to improve yourself to make sure the relationship is also good as well?
I mean, I take a course in communication.
Yeah, good job. Like we did.
I had 2 panic attacks myself after the divorce, so at least now I have more experience that I can use in being
On
empathetic.
panic attacks. Wow.
Great job, good job doing that. I just am very direct and very open from the beginning. So many people consider me intense when they get to know me. But I just do not want to waste my or their time to figure out that they're irresponsible or that I'm not a good fit for them later on. I just want to have the answers in the beginning, and then obviously things change, but at least you can say that you've tried everything to make it as clear as possible from the beginning. And yeah, it's difficult. Like I dated twice in the last 5 years because it's hard for me. Like, first of all, I only caught feelings twice in the last 5 years. And it's hard for me to, like I said, I don't think that I will develop feelings again for someone after dating or while dating. I think either I have feelings in the beginning or I don't. And I only had feelings twice, like for other people twice in the last 5 years. So I do not have too much practice in what I will do better in the next relationship, I guess. Yeah, and I just think that be more empathetic, be clear about my intention, clear and open communication, be responsible myself and accountable for whatever I do. I think these are the 4 things that I do.
Those are great things to take to your next relationship. And I think I can definitely relate to that as well upon a few years of isolation and reflection on a different country. Going into a new relationship with a new mindset, I guess a evolved self is going to have other types of challenges as well. But I think as we evolve and as we continue to choose to be in a relationship and continue to choose to be with that person, it's going to just kind of require work and require a lot of transparency and communication between like what it is that you guys want. Because there's so much information now in social media and especially on TikTok and how people kind of talk about relationship and issues and marriage, all that stuff. And scrolling through them, sometimes they tell you you need to be able to do XYZ or try to attack the problem itself instead of attacking the individual and work together on it. And I think there's just so much good little nuggets that everybody can kind of take from those types of information. Therapy is fantastic. Like going onto your own journey to self-improvement and then take it to your next relationship. I think I see great potential in you, and I am excited to hear any more updates in the near future. I think that's it for today. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for tuning in and sharing the moments with me. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up, comment, like, and subscribe. Truly means a lot. Catch you on the next episode. Bye.